Yes guys, the Champions League is back this week and so are the Champions League predictions. Today we are predicting round one of the league phase and there's some big games to get into. Feel free to share your predictions down below. If you disagree with my predictions, that's fair enough. Just let me know yours down in the comments in a respectful manner. Be sure to drop a like. Let's go for 2,000 likes. Hit that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe so you see all of our predictions videos. Go on, get involved. Let's get into the predictions. I can't wait. So then we kick things off with Athletic Club versus Arsenal, and this should be a good game. Of course, they only played a month ago in the Emirates Cup, which Arsenal did win 3-0, but I'm sure Athletic Club will go for it a bit more being at home and with it being the Champions League, a more prestige tournament, of course, and they've got players that can hurt you. The Williams brothers in particular, Nico Williams, I'm a massive fan of. I do like the goalkeeper Unai Simon, but Arsenal, are they going to really go for it this year? I think they are. I mean, they did quite well last season. You know, they beat Real Madrid 5-1 in the quarterfinals, but they just could not get past the final couple of hurdles, and that seems to be a bit of a recurring theme with Arsenal. Of course, Victor Gyökeres has come in. That's been one of their big signings this summer, and I'm interested to see how he does in the Champions League for Arsenal. Let's not forget he scored a hat-trick against Man City for Sporting last season, and I do think Arsenal are going to win this, and I have a feeling they're going to go quite far in the Champions League. I'm going to kick things off with Athletic Club 1, Arsenal 2 as my prediction. I do think with the game being away from home that it might not be straightforward for the Gunners, but I do expect them to get the win. So I'm going 2-1 to Arsenal in the first game. Next up then, and we go to PSV versus Union St Gillowy, who are making their Champions League debut here. Of course, we covered them in the Europa League last season, and they have got off to a decent start so far this season. But PSV are the Dutch champions, of course. They stole the title from Ajax last season, and I think they're really going to target this game as a must-win to get their Champions League campaign started off well. Of course, there's lots of quality in their ranks with Terovic, Perisic, Veerman. I just think they're going to be too strong with the home advantage as well for Union Saint Gillowy, who are making their debut, as I say, in this competition. So I'm going to go PSV 2-0. I do think it will be relatively straightforward, like I say, especially with the home advantage, but I'm not going to go for a slaughter in this game. I'll just go as far as 2-0, but feel free to share your thoughts down below. Next up then, and we go to Benfica versus Qarabağ. Now, both teams qualified for the Champions League through the playoffs, Qarabağ beating Ferencváros in the playoff round, whereas Benfica, they got past Fenerbahce in the playoff round. That was quite impressive, to be fair. They've had a good start to the season, and once again, a similar theme here. Qarabağ, this is only their second ever Champions League. Now, I don't want to completely underestimate them, but I do think going away from home to a Champions League regular, you could say, with Benfica, I think it might be one step too far for Qarabağ. I will give them a goal. Let's go Benfica 3, Qarabağ 1. As my prediction for this one. I do think Benfica are going to kick things off with 3 points in their first game. Let me know your thoughts down below. Next up then, and I am looking forward to this, it's Juventus versus Borussia Dortmund. Two big names, of course, when it comes to European competitions. Interestingly enough, Juventus finished 4th in Serie A last season, whereas Borussia Dortmund finished 4th in the Bundesliga. Juventus, of course, lots of quality going forwards. Jonathan David coming through is a really good signing. You've also got the likes of Vlahovic and Yildiz, whereas Borussia Dortmund, to be fair, they have the likes of Garassi, who's probably going to score in this game. So I think it's going to be a good game. Lots of quality on display. Let's go for some goals. I'm going to predict Juventus to win 3-2. Maybe if this game was in Dortmund, I might lean towards Borussia Dortmund, but I do think Juventus are going to kick things off with 3 points as well. So I'm going 3-2 to the home team. Next up then, and we have Real Madrid versus Marseille. Now, Real Madrid, of course, finished second in La Liga last season. Marseille came second in Ligue 1. Now, Real Madrid, of course, are the most successful club in Champions League history. They're going to want to add to that tally this season with Xabi Alonso at the wheel. We all know the quality and the threat that they carry going forwards in Mbappe and Vinicius, and you could go on. But to be fair, Marseille, they've got players that can hurt you. Mason Greenwood, Aubameyang, of course, they've got players that can get goals, so I will give them a goal. I don't think they've had a great start to Ligue 1 this season, but I'm going to go Real Madrid 3, Marseille 1 as my prediction. Feel free to share your thoughts down below. Next up then, and we have Tottenham versus Villarreal. I'm looking forward to this. Tottenham are back in the Champions League. Such a strange season last year to win the Europa League but to finish 17th. Such contrast, isn't it, between how good they were in Europe and how poor they were in the English League. But I do think now they've got Thomas Frank, they're going to be more consistent. I do think Tottenham could get far. It all depends on how they start this competition. I do think they're going to win this one. Villarreal, of course, are a good team. They finished 5th in La Liga last season. Of course, they've got Buchanan, they've got Nicolas Pepe, they've got lots of great attacking options. But to be fair to Tottenham and Thomas Frank, in their first couple games in the Premier League, they've looked a bit more solid at the back. And of course, they carry a threat when they go forwards in Richarlison, Kudus, Brennan Johnson. So I'm going to go with Tottenham to win this, especially with the home advantage. Going to go Tottenham 2, Villarreal 0. Let's give Tottenham 3 massive points to kick things off. And honestly, I do like Tottenham. I hope they go quite far in the Champions League. I don't know. I mean, could they get to the final 4 or something? We've got 6 English teams in the Champions League this year. Surely we're going to get at least 3 of them getting to the quarterfinals and maybe 2 to the semi-finals. Will Tottenham be one of those teams? We will see. Share your thoughts down below. Next up, we move on to Olympiakos versus Paphos. Now, Paphos are making their UEFA Champions League debut. Fair play to them. They did amazing to qualify. Of course, Paphos came out on top, winning the league in Cyprus last season, and they've got players that can hurt you. Correa, Anderson Silva as well, I do rate him. But Olympiakos with the home advantage and with the ambition that Marinakis will want for Olympiakos this season, I do think they're going to win this. Of course, Olympiakos were the Greek champions last season. They've got Chiquinho, they've got El Kaabi, who I really rate. I think he had a good campaign in the Europa League last season. And I'm going to go for Olympiakos. Let's go 3-1. Let's give Paphos their first Champions League goal, but I don't think they're going to get their first Champions League points here. I'm going for the home team. Next up, we go to Slavia Prague versus Bodo Glimt. This is a massive opportunity for both teams to start their Champions League campaign with a win. It feels like this could go either way. Of course, Slavia Prague, they won the Czech League last year. Bodo Glimt, they won the Norwegian League last year. And of course, they were brilliant in the Europa League. Bodo Glimt really are the underdogs of Europe. They got as far as the Europa League semi-finals until they were beaten by Tottenham, and I do think a lot of teams are not going to like travelling over to their ground. It seems quite hostile and they can make it a fortress. Can they win away from home? I'm tempted to go for a draw, but I do think I might go for Bodo Glimt. Maybe Kasper Holt will pop up with the winner. Of course, he's been prolific for Bodo Glimt. So let's go Slavia Prague 1, Bodo Glimt 2. I'm just going to go with the away team. I really like them. Like I say, they're like the underdogs, and I don't know, maybe they might qualify through the league phase. Let me know your thoughts down below. Next up, we go to Ajax versus Inter Milan, 2 more big names across Europe. Ajax, of course, they should have won the Eredivisie last season. They absolutely crumbled right at the end. Can they go far in the Champions League? This is a big game, isn't it? If they can get something here, then that would be a real statement. And of course, they could get a couple of goals. I do like Weghorst, but I think Inter Milan might be too strong. Of course, Inter Milan were the finalists in the Champions League last season before they were beaten 5-0 by PSG. Lots of quality. Lautaro Martinez, Thuram, Bastoni, Barella. I think their squad is just too strong for Ajax. So I'm going to go Ajax 1, Inter 3. As my prediction. I'm going for lots of goals today, by the way, and what I will say is it's really hard to predict the first week of the Champions League, so do cut me some slack because there's not a lot to go off. Let's move on to the next one. This is a big one. It's Bayern Munich versus Chelsea, and of course this was the Champions League final in 2012 when Chelsea won their first ever Champions League. Now this one is a difficult one because Bayern Munich always look great when I watch them in the Bundesliga. They've been destroying teams already. They've scored quite a few goals. Of course you've got Harry Kane, you've got Luis Diaz, who of course came from Liverpool. You've got Elise, who's always quite frightening to go up against. But then you've got Chelsea, and Chelsea have had a pretty good start to the Premier League so far. They're scoring goals. Sanchez is still a question mark for me. I don't know, is he going to cost them a couple of games this season? Maybe. As far as Chelsea, though, this year, I mean, let's give them credit. They've won the Club World Cup. They've won the Conference League. Let's see how far they get in the Champions League. As for my prediction, I'm going to go down the middle. I'm struggling. 2-2. Let's go for a share of the spoils. I think both teams would be relatively happy with a draw. I mean, it'd be a massive result for either if they can beat the other. But I do think this one might end level. Let me know your thoughts down below. Next up, we go to Anfield, the home of the Premier League winners Liverpool, and they take on Atletico Madrid. It just feels like you can't look past Liverpool. Liverpool have been great in the Premier League so far, of course, and they are my tip to win the Premier League, and that was before they signed Isak. And now you add Isak to that team, you think, well, do you know what? They could maybe win the Premier League and the Champions League. Is that too bold to say that? I don't know. I expect them to at least get to the final four of the Champions League, depending on who they play in the knockout stages. Anyway, I do expect them to get off to a winning start here. Now, of course, we should highlight that Atletico Madrid do have decent players. They've got Oblak in goal, they've got Simeone, they've got Alvarez. But like I say, Liverpool, Isak, Salah, Szoboszlai. I could go on. Let's go Liverpool 3, Atletico Madrid 1. I know that Atletico Madrid did rock up to Anfield a few years ago and beat them in the Champions League, but this time round, I just can't look past Liverpool. Remember, they did top the league phase last season, and they'll want to go further in the knockout stages this time round. Of course, they lost to PSG on penalties last season, didn't they? Anyway, I'm going for Liverpool, 3-1. Next up, we go to PSG versus Atalanta, and PSG, of course, are the Champions League holders. They were absolutely fantastic last season, and, in my opinion, them and Liverpool and maybe Barcelona, they've got to be the favourites this time round. PSG are just so frightening going forwards, aren't they? Dembele, Doué, João Neves, Barcola. Of course, they did lose Donnarumma. That is a big loss. His presence in goal. He's gone to Man City. But they're going to be too powerful for Atalanta, surely. I hate to be critical of managers, but Ivan Djuric at Atalanta, I've got a couple of question marks. His last couple of managerial positions haven't been great. Of course, Southampton, it was a difficult job, but it didn't go well. And then Roma, that didn't end well. I'm going to go PSG 4-0. But if I'm being honest, it could be more than that. I think PSG are just way too powerful for Atalanta. Now then, next up we go to Club Brugge versus Monaco. And this one feels difficult, doesn't it? Club Brugge were absolutely fantastic in the playoff round to qualify for the Champions League. Of course, they absolutely destroyed Rangers. They smashed them to pieces. But Monaco, their squad is quite good. It's a strange mix. You've got Eric Dyer, you've got Pogba. Who else have they got? Ansu Fati. They've got a real mix of quality in there, haven't they? But Club Brugge have the home advantage. I might go for a draw in this one. I could go either way. I could see either team winning it, but I'm going to go 2-2. Let's go for some more goals. I do think the Champions League is going to be stacked with goals this season. I just think in the first game week, no one knows what to expect, and I think there's just going to be loads of goals. Let's go 2-2. Next up, we go to Copenhagen versus Bayer Leverkusen. Once again, it's a bit of a tricky one to predict because Bayer Leverkusen, of course, they've just got rid of Ten Hag as the manager, and they have just brought in a new manager in Hjulmand. They got quality, of course. Patrick Schick is one of my favourite forwards. But then, of course, Copenhagen, they've got good players. Moukoko, Jordan Larson, and they've been a bit of a surprise package in the Champions League before, haven't they? I think Leverkusen might win. Let's go Copenhagen 1, Bayer Leverkusen 2. I think it will be close, but I am fancying the German team to just win that one. But as I say, Copenhagen, they are full of surprises, so you never know. Next up, we go to Eintracht Frankfurt versus Galatasaray. Once again, it's a difficult one, this, because there's not a lot of Champions League evidence to go on so far this season. In fact, there's none, unless your team qualified through the playoffs. Eintracht Frankfurt, of course, are a decent team. Of course, they've lost Marmoush and Ekitike, we should say, from last season, but they've still got goals in them. They finished third in the Bundesliga last season. Galatasaray, of course, they won the Turkish league last year. They've got lots of quality. I expect Icardi and Yilmaz to be getting a couple of goals in the Champions League this year. And let's go for some more goals. I'm going to go for another draw, and let's go for another 2-2. Really struggling to separate some of these games. I could see Galatasaray winning, but with the home advantage, Eintracht Frankfurt might fancy this. Let's go for a draw. Share your thoughts on that one down in the comments. Next up, we are back in England as Manchester City take on Napoli. And of course, this will be the return of Kevin De Bruyne. Interesting, isn't it? It feels a bit weird to see him playing at the Etihad, but not for Man City. Obviously, what a great servant he was for Manchester City over 10 years. Of course, Scott McTominay is coming back to Manchester as well. Of course, the former Manchester United player plays for Napoli. I think Napoli have got a good team, and I think they could hurt Man City. And the unpredictability of Man City recently does make me a little bit unsure. I do fancy them though. Of course, they've got Haaland, they've got Cherky, they've got Reinders, and if they can all play as well as they did when they beat Wolves on the opening day in the Premier League, then I can't see past Man City. But as I say, they are a bit unpredictable. Let's go Man City 2, Napoli 1. And it wouldn't surprise me if De Bruyne either scores or assists for the Napoli goal. But I do think Man City will just win. Share your thoughts down below. Next up then, and we go to Newcastle United versus Barcelona. This is easily the game I am most excited for. This will be brilliant. I just think it's seeing St James's Park back in the Champions League is just so magical, because this is a proper football ground with proper passionate football fans. I'm not trying to discredit any other football fan base, but you get a lot of tourists at a lot of the top clubs in Europe. Newcastle United have a very hardcore, passionate bunch of supporters, and let's not forget they beat PSG 4-1 in the Champions League just a couple years ago. But this is Barcelona, and they got Gavi, and they got Lamine Yamal, and they got Pedri, and they can hurt you from any direction. They've got Rafinha. And Newcastle have lost Isak, so it might seem quite easy to say that Barcelona will win comfortably. And I do think Barcelona are one of the best teams in the Champions League. I do think they'll probably get to at least the semi-finals. However, I think the St James's Park factor might get Newcastle something out of this game. 2-2 is my prediction. I'm not going to go as far as to say Newcastle will win. They could, but I will go for an entertaining draw. As I've said, I do think Barcelona will go far in the Champions League, and I also think Newcastle will get through the league phase, at least to the playoffs. Share your thoughts on that one down below. I can't wait. Looking forward to it. The final game then is between Sporting and Karat. Fair play to Karat, by the way. First ever Champions League for them, of course, after getting past Celtic in the playoffs. They did it on penalties. Fair play to them. Really looking forward to seeing how they get on. However, are they going to come unstuck against Sporting? I think they might. I think Sporting are just too powerful. I know Sporting are a slightly different team to what they were this time last year when they had Amurim and of course they had Gyökeres, but they've still got players that can hurt you. Trincao and Luis Suarez, of course. And I'm going to back Sporting to win this one 3-0. I think Sporting are just going to be too strong. I really hope Karat do all right in the Champions League. I hope they give a good account of themselves, but this is going to be difficult. So 3-0 to Sporting is my prediction. And so then, guys, that wraps up my Champions League Round 1 predictions. Whew. Honestly, it's really hard, especially when there's not a lot to go off. So do cut me some slack. Let me know your predictions down in the comments. If you disagree, that's fair enough, but let's be respectful. Make sure to show this video some support. Drop a like, subscribe as well. Go on, get involved, and we will be back doing more Champions League predictions later this month. Take care, everyone. Peace out.